I was the most understanding wife in Beijing's elite circle. When Victor got a young model pregnant, I stepped in to smooth things over. When Victor was caught entering a hotel with a top celebrity, I bribed the media and wiped every photo and video. Everyone in the circle said Victor had a perfect wife. Their laughter was laced with mockery. But I didn't care. After handling the last scandal, I disappeared from the scene. Later, Victor called me across the ocean. Chapter 1. Victor's new flame was Alice, a rookie actress. Her debut film's biggest investor was none other than Victor. Among all the women fluttering around him, Alice was the youngest and the boldest. She sent me one explicit photo after another, filling my inbox with taunts. Mrs. Victor, people say you're so generous. Could you check if these photo angles look good? I closed the email without replying until Victor called. How did those photos leak? Elena, can't you keep up the act anymore? His cutting tone made my chest ache for a moment before I calmed down. I don't know, I said flatly. The next second, he hung up. Notifications from every social media platform popped up on my phone. #CEO caught in nude scandal again. The headline blazed. The photos were censored but clearly identical to the ones Alice had sent me. The girl was young, and so were her tactics. Editors-in-chief from major outlets messaged me with practiced ease. Mrs. Victor, 7 figures this time will do. Mrs. Victor, there's still time for PR. I replied to each, not necessary. Soon, they stopped messaging. But before long, my chat replies were screenshotted and spread wildly online. Looks like she's really given up. Of course, who can keep cleaning up her husband's scandals again and again? Want to bet how long until the divorce? I drew in a deep breath. Staring at the empty villa, a chill spread through my chest. Victor, consider this my divorce gift to you. Soon, the photos vanished as if evaporated into thin air. The so-called chat screenshots were debunked as AI generated, and the media quickly shifted to exposing other celebrities. Chapter 2. Once the scandal was buried, Victor sent me a message. Elena, unbelievable. You can even stomach this. All for money, you're shameless. How much this time? Or do you need more imported meds for your father's pathetic life? I replied indifferently, not anymore. Silence. Then nothing further. Victor didn't know my father had passed away yesterday, while he soaked in a hot spring with Alice. My father died of acute renal failure. I called Victor countless times, heard nothing but unanswered rings. I cried for 10 hours in the hospital room. Then Alice's messages came, and I wiped my tears to arrange my father's funeral. After everything was settled, I returned to the villa I shared with Victor. When the photos were spreading like wildfire, Victor finally called me, only to accuse me bitterly. But it no longer mattered. The most important thing now was divorcing Victor. Years ago, my family and Victor's had a business marriage alliance. But when my father made a mistake and our company went bankrupt, he collapsed on the spot. Back when Victor's father was alive, Victor still treated me decently. Not love, but at least respectful. Over time, I grew feelings for him in our plain life together. His change began the night his father died. It was raining hard. Victor was in our bedroom, tangled with another woman. I went mad, tearing at her. Victor shielded her. It was the first time he threatened me. Elena, your father's medical bills still depend on me. Helplessness engulfed me. That night, the stranger stayed. From then on, Victor indulged recklessly. I began cleaning up his endless scandals. To Victor, I was just a woman playing the role of a dutiful wife for money. Elena, you know what kind of life I had before. Now, nobody controls me. It's heaven. Victor's eyes were hazy when he said it. I only stared at him blankly. Chapter 3. In the past, Victor had truly been restrained. He couldn't even speak without watching his father's expression. The sound of footsteps pulled me back from my thoughts. Victor walked over, tugging at his tie, his body drenched in heavy cologne. Elena, so you don't want money this time? What new trick have you learned? I looked at him, puzzled. Don't pretend. Alice said she saw you signing up for those Win Your Husband Back workshops. What did you learn in class? Suddenly saying you don't want money. What's this move called? Playing hard to get? Victor sneered, laughing mockingly. He sat beside me and pulled me into his arms. I could clearly hear the beating of his heart against my ear. Elena, Here's your chance. Start your performance. He chuckled as he spoke. I lifted my gaze at him. He leaned his head back on the sofa. I couldn't even remember the last time I had been this close to Victor. I raised my hand, placing it on his chest. I felt it flinch beneath my palm. Elena, that's it? As soon as the words fell, Victor shoved me away forcefully, looking at me as if I were trash. Victor, let's get a divorce. I spoke calmly. Victor, who had just stood up, froze for a moment. This was the second time I'd asked him for a divorce. The first was the night I caught him cheating. My father had left me a considerable inheritance, known to no one else. But Victor had refused divorce back then. He said he wouldn't let me take half of his wealth. He also didn't believe I would have the courage to leave him. Sure, when? Victor smirked, untying his tie and throwing it in my face. I was surprised, never thought he'd agree so easily. But then he suddenly gripped my chin. Those handsome eyes of his scrutinized my face. After a long silence, he spoke with mocking lightness. Elena, you're a terrible student. Better find another workshop. Chapter 4. After saying those words, Victor returned to the bedroom. I was left alone in the living room. The tightly shut door cut me off from him. Thinking back to the days when we treated each other with distant courtesy, it felt like yesterday. Victor had changed too quickly. Suddenly, the housekeeper led in a few men. I knew them all. They were Victor's close brothers in arms. Unlike before, they didn't greet me respectfully. They only cast me a brief glance. Victor soon came out of the master bedroom, now dressed in loungewear. The men filed into the study. The last one turned back, his eyes full of sympathy as he looked at me. The study door was left slightly ajar. Muffled voices drifted out. Not many people propose in this place. Security's tight. Use roses. Girls all like custom diamond rings, right? Victor, if you do this, your wife, I can't give Alice a title, but I can give her the sense of ceremony. Don't spread this around. Victor's voice cut the man off. So, he was planning to propose to Alice. I stepped away from the doorway. Victor hadn't noticed the suitcase I had already packed. When I heard the sound of him seeing his guests out, I left the master bedroom. From the upstairs landing, I saw Victor happily humming a tune. Soon after dusk, he changed into a bespoke suit and left the house. I didn't follow. I was busy contacting an immigration agent. For years, I had been using my own money to clean up Victor's filth. He assumed I'd been using the supplementary card he gave me, believing he controlled my finances. But as I looked at the comfortable balance in my bank account, I felt a little steadier. Once I finalized a new house, the agent sent me the contract. Before I had a chance to read it, a message came from Alice. It was a 10-minute video. Victor's confession to her alone lasted 6 minutes, his eyes full of tenderness as he looked at her. I had to admit, of all these years, Alice was the one he had cherished the most. Chapter 5. Do you like it, Mrs. Victor? I heard your wedding was held at a 5-star hotel but without a proposal. It was rushed and perfunctory. Victor never gave you something this full of ceremony, did he? Victor's brothers all said I'm the only girl he's ever taken so seriously. Alice's voice note brimmed with pride, as if her words could drive me insane. Unfortunately for her, my heart was calm. For Victor, I only had a shred of love left. Congratulations. I sent back only 2 words. She went silent. The summer wind rustled the leaves outside. I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the vanity. That night, I dreamed of my father. When I woke, my pillow was wet with tears. 110 missed calls glared at me from my phone. Before I could check them, Victor called again. The moment I answered, his voice thundered with rage. Elena, I really underestimated you. All these years you've acted harmless, the perfect virtuous wife. But behind my back you're more venomous than anyone. What? I asked instinctively, but he hung up. A second later, he sent me a screenshot. The proposal video had already climbed to the top of trending topics on every major platform. Media editors had long sent me their price tags. While I slept, the company's stock had plummeted because of the video. Speculation had already begun on how much Victor would have to split in a divorce. I stared at the flood of messages, drained to the core. Just then, the bedroom door slammed open. Victor stormed in, his eyes bloodshot. Seizing my collar, His gaze burned with fury. If looks could kill, I'd have died 1,000 times over. Chapter 6. Elena, what are you trying to do? This is how you compete for favor. Destroying me, the man who keeps you, even if it means I go bankrupt? I looked at the man I had lived with for 8 years. He didn't understand me at all. Victor yanked his hand free and hurled me onto the bed. This time, I want you to be as obedient as before. His words dripped with threat. He tossed my father's usual imported medicine onto the bed. His meaning was clear: if I didn't behave, I would lose my father. Too late, Victor. My father is already gone, and I am leaving too. Victor, it wasn't me who did this. If you don't believe me, investigate. Finding the truth would be easy for you. I sat up straight, meeting his eyes. Victor sneered, as if he'd just heard a joke. Elena, Alice told me the video was only sent to you. She's young, reckless. But you're different. You know better than anyone how to manipulate public opinion, don't you? Weren't those trending headlines always in the palm of your hand? His eyes were full of contempt. Every word from Alice, he believed without doubt. I knew that no matter how I explained, he would never believe me. Victor, I know you won't trust me, so let's divorce. The room fell into a terrifying silence. I sat motionless on the bed. Victor stared at me for a long time. Only when birds chirped outside did he finally speak. Fine, I'll have Secretary Liu draft the divorce agreement right now. An hour later, the agreement was ready. Victor signed it quickly and turned to leave. The secretary, looking worried, stepped forward to say something, but Victor cut him off. She won't sign it without me. She's nothing. Chapter 7. As Victor strode away, I picked up the pen and signed my name without hesitation. The secretary stood there in shock. I smiled softly. Thank you. He nodded stiffly, slipped the divorce agreement into a folder, bowed, and left. Once I received the contract for the new house from the agent, I began sending my luggage ahead. Victor's proposal news still filled my phone, but I no longer bothered to look. After shipping my things, I booked a flight for the following evening. Alice sent me another message. Mrs. Victor, oh wait. Soon that title will be mine. Elena, I don't like traces of another woman in my home. Clean everything up before you leave. Arrogant. She attached a photo of the custom diamond ring Victor had bought her. A massive rock glittered on her ring finger, held up by his other hand. Victor truly doted on her. I picked up my own 1-carat wedding ring and laughed bitterly. Then I loosened my fingers, and it clattered into the trash bin. The maid approached nervously, asking where I was going. I'm just going out for a while, I told her. If Mr. Victor asks, say I went traveling. I smiled as I spoke. She twisted her apron between her hands for a long time, then finally nodded. I carried flowers to the suburban cemetery where my father's ashes rested, and stroked the small photo on his tombstone. I remembered the day of the bankruptcy. My father collapsed, and Victor simply stood there while I struggled to hold him up. He didn't even call an ambulance. Later, the doctor said the chances of waking were slim, and the medicine needed daily was extremely expensive. Victor held my trembling shoulders. Elena, don't worry, you still have me. His voice was so gentle then. For that moment, I forgave his countless failings. Chapter 8. But people can't live forever in a single fleeting moment. After carefully placing the bouquet in front of the tombstone, I stood up and left. It was already midnight by the time I returned to the villa. The buzz around Victor's proposal had died down. New scandals had taken over the trending list. I had to admit, the speed of the internet was frightening. Most likely Victor himself had handled it this time. I packed some personal belongings and took a shower. When I lay down, a new notification popped up on my phone. Alice's clarification video. She sat before the camera in a plain white t-shirt. Her face was pale, her swollen red eyes under the dim light suggesting she had just been crying. Hello everyone. I'm Alice. Regarding the proposal video online, it was my boss rehearsing a scene with me. Someone with ill intentions recorded it and spread it with misleading captions, causing harm to the company and his family. I'm very sorry. As she spoke, tears streamed down. She stood up, looking fragile, and raised her arm. Bright scars marked her skin. Bowing deeply to the camera, she choked out her next words. I also hope Mrs. Victor can rest assured there's nothing improper between my boss and me. The video ended there. I opened the comments section, just as I had expected. Oh my god. Actresses care the most about their skin. No way those scars are self-inflicted. Clearly the wife is afraid of losing her husband. Out of all the canaries, Alice is the most special. She's been with him the longest, and her gifts are the most expensive. Of course the wife is panicking. Scrolling further only revealed filthier speculations. I closed the video and shut off my phone, preparing to sleep. That's when Victor came back. Before entering, he called my name. When he pushed the door open, the veins in his arm bulged with fury. Chapter 9. Elena, are you really set on opposing me? Don't you care about your father's life? Victor's brows furrowed as his fists clenched. I propped myself up on the bed. Whatever lingering love I had for him was already gone. He had never once believed me. A man capable of running a conglomerate actually chose to believe such clumsy schemes. In the 10 seconds our eyes locked, only one thought circled in my head: leave. Victor. The things I didn't do. I just didn't do. Believe it or not, I said. Then turned my back on him, lying down. The only sound left was Victor's angry breathing. A few minutes later, silence. Elena, don't waste your time struggling. With that, he slammed the door hard, footsteps stomping away until they faded. Only then did I close my eyes. The next morning, I personally threw away everything connected to me. Aside from the maid, no one would know I had ever lived in that villa. By afternoon, after hours of busy preparation, I headed for the airport. Before I left, the maid once again asked where I was going. I lifted my head toward the blazing sun, then told her, I'm going on a trip. She nodded, smiling gently. Miss, have fun. I returned her smile and got into the car. The airport was quiet. Check-in was quick. In the noisy crowd, I occasionally caught people gossiping about Alice and Victor. Thankfully, with my mask on, no one recognized me. Do you think Alice will eventually marry Victor? Who knows? His wife used to be from a rich family too. They went bankrupt. But she still has tricks. TSK. If it were me, I'd divorce and take the money. Let Alice have him. Bet the wife got too used to being kept. She probably can't survive without Victor. Listening to the two girls beside me chatter on, I couldn't help but laugh under my breath. They both turned their heads toward me, eyes full of confusion. Chapter 10. I cleared my throat and said firmly to the two girls, the wife will definitely divorce him. They exchanged glances, surprised at how certain I sounded. You know some inside news? One of them asked. I shook my head. Just a guess. They both let out a sigh of relief, smiling as they said my guess was wrong. Then they went back to discussing how many things Victor had given Alice. I listened with boredom and turned my head to watch the sunset. The moment right before the sun dips below the horizon is always the most beautiful. When the plane took off, by coincidence, the two girls sat just in front of me. Their topic had shifted to which famous attractions to visit after landing. I pulled up the blanket and drifted into sleep. Vaguely, I heard Victor's name again. I guess the two girls were back to gossiping about my family affairs. But when they eventually heard about Victor and me divorcing, they'd remember this airport stranger who had declared it with certainty. Meanwhile, in the empty villa, only the maid was cleaning. Victor, after a long day of meetings with the PR department over the public scandal, tugged irritably at his tie. Deep down, he swore he'd make Elena apologize properly, as long as she sincerely said I'm sorry. Victor could forgive her and even cut ties with Alice. He slumped onto the sofa, noticing Elena wasn't there. Normally, she loved to sit on the sofa and wait for him to come home. Today was strange. It even felt like Elena's scent was gone. Victor called the maid, who said Elena had gone on a trip, but hadn't mentioned where. Standing before him with her head lowered, the maid only made Victor more restless. He pulled out his phone, opened the location tracker, and saw Elena's signal moving from the airport back toward the city. Chapter 11. Victor couldn't help but smirk. So Elena had only learned one trick from those win your husband back workshops, playing hard to get, and she wasn't even good at it. He asked the maid to pour him a glass of red wine, then opened his chat with Alice and transferred her some money. She quickly replied with a cute sticker. Victor laughed out loud. He really did like Alice, and was willing to spoil her. He loved her youthful energy, the way she clung to him, acting coy, begging for gifts. He loved the reckless indulgence of it, even if it defied moral standards. As for Elena, he ran a hand through his hair, unable to find the right word. Seeing the red wine the maid had placed on the table, he took a sip. Then he opened the tracking app again. It was 9 p.m. Elena's location showed she was already at the gates of the villa community. Victor smoothed his hair. When Elena walked through the door, he planned to scold her first. How dare she still have the mood to travel at a time like this? He liked Elena, precisely because her family had gone bankrupt and her father was hospitalized. Apart from him, Elena had no one else to rely on. A woman who could clean up his messes with other women yet still depend on him. He was satisfied with that. But he couldn't let Elena know his real thoughts. So Victor was always cruel to her. Watching the locator on his phone inch closer, Victor curled his lips into a smile until the two icons overlapped. A few minutes later, the maid handed him a cardboard box. "Sir, this is Madam's package. The courier said you must open it yourself." She lowered her head and left after speaking. Victor held the box, unease spreading inside him. He tore open the tape. Inside lay Elena's phone, silent and still. The unease consumed him completely. He picked it up. There was no lock screen. The wallpaper was their wedding photo, taken in Paris. Chapter 12. Suddenly, he remembered it was his wedding anniversary with Elena today. But recently Alice had clung to him so tightly. Every time Victor saw the pleading look in her eyes, he sighed. "All right, I'll stay with you a little longer." Victor's gaze fell on Elena's phone. He suddenly wondered, while he was out indulging with Alice, what had Elena been doing? He slid the screen upward, and the phone unlocked easily. The home screen wallpaper was a photo of Elena, taken in Sonia. He had been the one to take it. That day, the sun was blazing. Elena had insisted he take a picture of her. Victor had only snapped a few half-hearted shots before going back inside. He never expected Elena would use one of those poorly framed photos as her wallpaper. She must have really loved him. Victor tapped on WeChat and froze. The chat window with Alice was pinned at the very top, alongside his own. "Elena, today Victor brought me to Paris. He said this was where you two took your wedding photos. But honestly, I don't think it's anything special. Elena, we're in New York. Did he tell you he was on a business trip? He's actually here traveling with me. This diamond ring isn't my style at all. Victor said it's bigger than yours, so I accepted it reluctantly. Elena, today Victor said he doesn't love you. He said you're no different from one of his employees. Elena, Victor only believes whatever I tell him." Victor read through the entire chat history. His whole body felt as if it had been plunged into an ice cellar. The Alice who appeared harmless in front of him had been taunting Elena all along. He opened the email inbox next. None of Alice's emails had been deleted. The videos and photos the media had gotten their hands on had all been leaked by Alice herself, just to frame Elena. Such a crude scheme. And Victor hadn't seen through it. He had only assumed it was Elena's desperate tactic to hold on to him. Chapter 13. After reading everything, Victor collapsed weakly onto the sofa. He summoned the maid again, asking about Elena's whereabouts. The answer was the same as before. Panic consumed him. He dialed Elena's number. The ringtone echoed in the living room. Her phone was right there, in his hand. Victor's eyes reddened. He paced the room, realizing he had no other way to reach her besides this phone. At that moment, his secretary arrived, laying a folder on the table. Inside was the divorce agreement. Elena's signature was crisp and decisive. Behind him stood another man. He introduced himself as Elena's lawyer, entrusted to handle the divorce procedures. Victor, eyes bloodshot, gripped the lawyer's shoulder and rasped, "Where is Elena? Where did she go?" The lawyer shook his head. "Sorry, sir, that's my client's privacy." Victor pulled out a check and scribbled an amount, shoving it at the lawyer. He didn't budge. Victor added 2 more zeros. Still, the lawyer shook his head. The secretary, unable to stand it, finally spoke up. "Boss, when Madam signed, I saw her immigration documents, and Madam's father, he has already passed away." At those words, all the strength drained out of Victor. He slumped onto the sofa. Meanwhile, I had settled abroad. The house was fully furnished with appliances and furniture. After lunch, I lay on the rocking chair in the garden. The sunshine was warm, and I found myself liking autumn here very much. Fiery red maple leaves covered the ground, crunching underfoot. Oddly soothing. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so at ease. With my new phone number, I got back in touch with my good friend Clara. She lived in the next district over, and she had been a great help in making my immigration go smoothly. Chapter 14. Clara came by at dinner time. I had cooked a Chinese meal, and the two of us lounged on the sofa with wine in hand. The movie was an old, melodramatic love story. Out of nowhere, Clara asked me, "Elena, have you really let go?" I lifted my eyes to her and laughed. I honestly don't know when I let go. Maybe it was when Alice first reached out to me. Maybe when he proposed to her. But to tell the truth, leaving him, I don't feel even a trace of regret. The day Alice sent me that video, I wasn't angry at all. I actually felt relieved. At last, I had an excuse to leave him. I took another sip of wine, a little drunk, staring blankly at the ceiling. For no reason, I thought back to my first meeting with Victor. He had been humble, warm, smiling like winter sunlight and spring breeze. I once told my father, this marriage alliance was the right choice, but I never saw that Victor again. It was as if someone else had taken over his body, until the day he bared his twisted face and roared at me, "Elena, I hate rules more than anything." That's when I finally understood the Victor the first met had been an act. At his core, he had always been a spoiled libertine, long suppressed and finally unleashed. I was actually worried you might regret it. Clara's voice pulled me back. I laughed so hard I couldn't catch my breath. I'd have to be insane to regret it. So we drank the night away. 2 women against the world. By dawn, Clara stumbled home in a daze, alcohol still lingering in my blood. I staggered into the garden and collapsed onto the rocking chair. Through my blurred vision, I thought I saw Victor. He stood outside the garden wall, his face full of sorrow. It had to be a hallucination. Victor had hurt me too deeply. I must have PTSD. With that thought, I shut my eyes and drifted into sleep. I felt my body lifted, then sinking into softness. Chapter 15. When I woke, Victor was sitting at the bedside, his eyes bloodshot. I froze, pinching my thigh hard to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Victor had followed me here. "Elena, why did you leave me?" His voice was hoarse. As he leaned closer, hands braced on the bed. In just half a month, he looked more haggard, fine lines creeping around his eyes. "We're already divorced." My tone was cold as I inched backward, keeping as much distance as possible. Silently, I cursed the security guards for their incompetence. How had they let him in so easily? The word divorce seemed to stab Victor. His eyes clouded. Then, to my surprise, tears spilled, soaking into my sheets. Disgusting. "Elena, I was wrong. I know now. It was Alice all along. You won't leave me, will you?" I went to see Father. I didn't know he'd pass so suddenly. If I had known, it's too late to say this now. But Elena, come back with me, please? His voice was desperate, like he truly couldn't bear my absence. But my heart was calm. Worse, I just found him annoying. "Victor, I would have left you even without Alice. She was only my excuse." When I said this, he just stared, silent tears running down his face. I cleared my throat, raising my voice. "An excuse? Do you understand? Even without Alice, I still would have left you." Victor shook his head. Suddenly, he grabbed my shoulders, pulling me tightly into his arms. His voice was low and ragged. "I know you're angry. Wait for me. I'll give you an answer you'll be satisfied with." He pressed a kiss to my forehead and left. After that day, I never saw Victor again, but I fell in love with a blonde, blue-eyed, 6'2" Western man, handsome and bright. Chapter 16. He was as eager as a puppy, always circling around me. "Elena, do you like this? Elena, these are flowers I planted for you. Elena, guess what gift I brought today?" I liked this feeling of being cared for so much that I refused Clara's invitations several times, just to spend time with the handsome Western man. After a mountain hike, I collapsed onto my sofa at home, swearing that next time I'd cross that mountain completely. Just then, a message came from Clara, a string of entertainment headlines from back home. Hashtag Alice the homewrecker, forcing out the wife and taking her place. Hashtag CEO divorce. Hashtag Alice's nude scandal, affairs with multiple directors. Hashtag. I opened each one and quickly pieced everything together. Alice had been exposed for framing me. Others released dirt about her sleeping with directors for roles. Her rivals struck hard, spending heavily to buy trending slots. In an instant, Alice's reputation plummeted. Luxury brands cut ties, and her upcoming films were pulled from release. Fans speculated that the penalties would reach tens of millions. With her current financial state, Alice could never afford it. So Victor's so-called satisfactory answer was to let Alice become a despised mistress in the industry, hated by everyone. But the truth was, it had been Victor who put her on the pedestal. People overlooked the fact that she had destroyed my marriage, some even cheered her on. Victor was the true instigator. Alice was just a toy in his hand. I shut off my phone and accepted the sparkling water the Western man handed me. He wrapped me in his arms, kissing my ear again and again, whispering that he loved me. Honestly, it was hard to resist such straightforward, burning affection. As we tangled together, Clara arrived with wine, banging on my door. "Elena, don't you dare get so wrapped up in love that you forget your friends." Chapter 17. A month of happiness passed. Then I suddenly received a large sum of money, marked as divorce property division. I remembered I was entitled to half of Victor's assets, though I hadn't expected it so soon. My lawyer informed me Victor's company was on the brink of bankruptcy. He had given me my share, while he faced even more serious crises. The company had been reported for tax evasion, and the whistleblower was none other than Victor's once beloved Alice. Before I left, Victor's secretary had come to me, hoping I could persuade him. Alice had landed a new film role as a finance professional. She begged Victor to let her practice for a day in the company's finance department. But at that time, I couldn't see Victor, nor did he want to see me. The secretary warned that it was risky. Alice snapped back at him, and Victor said nothing. The next day, Alice appeared in the finance department in a tight business suit, acting like she owned the place. She nearly sent the financial report to the public email. After a chaotic day, several shareholders voiced their discontent. Victor suppressed it. Alice could read financial reports. Not only did she look at them, but she also opened the CFO's computer and read through everything for 2 hours. For such negligence to happen in a conglomerate was absurd. To keep the shareholders from finding out, Victor ordered the surveillance footage deleted. He still indulged Alice, unaware that his favoritism had planted a landmine. I opened the finance news feed. Sure enough, the group's bankruptcy announcement was trending at number 1. Divorce settlement payouts, plus tax issues, the company was crumbling. Just then, a call came from an unknown number. On the line was a familiar voice. "Elena, are you satisfied with this outcome? Alice won't provoke you again. Elena, have you forgiven me?" I didn't reply. Instead, I hung up, switched off my phone, and rushed into the dining room to drink recklessly with Clara. Chapter 18. As deep winter set in, I was shoveling snow in the yard when Victor arrived. He stood at the gate in a worn, pilled coat. I opened the door and let him in. The house's heating quickly melted the snow from his shoulders. Victor looked around the house before settling onto the sofa. He sipped a cup of hot water, trying to steady himself. "Elena, He stumbled over his words, unable to continue. But I already knew, this Victor was no longer the respected CEO everyone once admired. The massive business empire his father had left him, Victor had failed to protect. Because of Alice, Victor lost his father's life's work. On the day the corporation collapsed, Victor called me countless times. I never answered. I had no intention of bearing his negativity. After that, he never called again. Watching the news reports, penalties, fines, one after another, I quickly guessed what his fate would be. My lawyer later told me Victor had sold everything he could in China. After paying off damages and fines, there was almost nothing left. Only one villa remained, the very one I had once lived in. But too late, affection is cheaper than dirt. Alice's ending was just as tragic. She too was imprisoned for tax evasion. That news dominated the headlines for at least a week. Her gaunt face and hollow eyes plastered across every front page, few could connect her to the glamorous rising star she had once been. Elena, Do we still have a chance? Victor's voice was hoarse. His bony hands clutched the cup, steam rising and vanishing in the air. Victor, what makes you think you deserve me now? I sat opposite him on the sofa, scrutinizing the man I had once loved to death. His hair was a messy bird's nest. Wrinkles covered his face, stubble creeping everywhere. Victor, do you remember the first time we met? Back then, you dazzled me, but you changed so quickly. You said you hated rules. After your father died, you indulged yourself recklessly. You thought I'd depend on you because of my father's medical bills. But you were wrong. Even the money used to silence your scandals came from my father's inheritance. Victor, you truly don't deserve me. When I finished, the bitterness stuck in my chest for years finally released. Victor sat there, staring blankly, his eyes filled with shock, disappointment, regret. But to me, none of it mattered anymore. He drained the cup, then slowly stood to say goodbye. His last words before leaving were, "I'm sorry." I closed the door, watching as he left through the gate, crossing the yard, until his figure disappeared from sight. Half a month later, I read the news of Victor's suicide. Clara was stunned and asked me why. I couldn't say why. I only clung to the Western man at my side and sipped my red wine. Whatever the reason, he deserved it.